Republican frustrations aside, the Franken victory does put a lot of pressure squarely on Democrats. And the key question is, will the Democrats be able to unite and use their 60-vote caucus to override Republican objections on health care reform and other legislation? Here to make their case are liberal blogger Adam Green from OpenLeft.com and co-founder of the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. Also with us, Philip Klein, Washington correspondent for the American Spectator. Adam, let's start with you. 60, it's the magic number. Can the Democrats leverage this and bring some of the more centrist members like Landrieu and Nelson in line so that they can make the most effective use of 60?
Absolutely, I think they can. Now, I really think that the value of Al Franken's coming to the Senate is not math. It's not being one vote of 60 votes or anything like that. It is leadership. And he will be an outspoken, bold, progressive voice. You know, in the last couple days, we have seen an outbreak of what I call the sellout flu among some Senate Democrats. Folks like Max Baucus and Mary Landrieu and Kent Conrad, who have taken millions of dollars from healthcare and insurance interests and then threatened to oppose President Obama's public health insurance option, which has 76% support. So the question for Al Franken is, can he be a bold, outspoken voice, use this moment of fame that he has right now to go on TV and really make the case and hopefully bring some of his Senate colleagues with him?
Philip, you may disagree with the math, but in terms of the impact of Al Franken, I mean, now Democrats in the Senate have somebody who was a hit on Saturday Night Live. He's obviously a terrific and funny communicator. That's something that the Republicans don't have. Isn't that a problem?
Well, look, I think if you go back 3 years ago, Republicans had total control of the government. And they didn't do a great job, so they were kicked out of office. And so now you have Democrats that have full control. And, with Al Franken now having 60 votes, clearly they have no excuses. They can't blame Republican obstructionism. They can't whine about the party of no. So right now, if the economy continues to do lousy, people are going to blame Democrats. As the mountain of debt continues to accrue, people are going to blame Democrats. And as that debt leads to higher taxes, higher interest rates, and inflation, people are going to blame Democrats. And the other interesting dynamic is that if you go back to when Republicans were in control, not only were they angering and upsetting the American people, but they made conservatives become disillusioned because they didn't feel that Republicans were pursuing a conservative agenda. And you're starting to see in comments such as Adam how liberal activists are beginning to be restive with moderate Democrats. And you see that the sort of way the system is set up, makes it very difficult.
Well, Philip, you just said, that, and I've heard a lot of Republican strategists and conservatives say now the Democrats have it all. Is that to say then that if the Democrats have the ball, that the Republicans are going to sit on the sideline and do nothing? That's not responsible to your constituents.
Well, no, it's not a matter of doing nothing. It's just realistically speaking, the Republicans have 40 votes. So it's silly to talk about, well, why didn't Republicans do this or that? I mean, when Bush was in power, was it fair to say Democrats were doing nothing? Or did Democrats go on and say, well, look, Bush hasn't done anything and Republicans aren't doing anything? So I don't see how you blame the minority party. That wasn't what happened when Bush was president. Republicans controlled everything.
Well, but there is one big difference, though, between when Democrats are in control now and Republicans before. Republicans had majority control while pushing a very unpopular agenda and managed to push it through. That's why they became unpopular.
Yeah, but
wait. You mentioned liberal Democrats are getting restive, but here again, the public health insurance option has 76%
Okay, let me just talk about that number for instance. Let me talk about that number for a second. If you look at the Washington Post poll, which actually asked people a more detailed question, if the plan would drive private insurers out of business, would you still support it? Support dropped to 37%.
Right, and you can ask people anything.
Clear. Exactly. That's precisely the point. You can ask people anything.
And Phil, the fact of the matter is there's a Quinnipiac poll which asked a similar question which had it in the upper 60s, so you can split the baby either way you want. In any case, Philip Klein, Adam Green.
It depends on messaging.
It's very telling that an insurance industry poll actually showed 80+%.
Adam Green and Phil Klein, thank you both. We appreciate it. And
we don't have live blogging after the show, but as soon as we get that, you can just keep talking all day long, and people can follow you on and on and on. But this wasn't Face Off, because we have Face Off coming up in the next hour, but that was a pretty good one.
I do think Democrats may be in a little bit of trouble, though, when they talk about 60, because think about it, with Robert Byrd and Ted Kennedy not going to the Senate very often, it's still difficult for them to end these filibusters unless they can somehow get these two there.
And I think that's why we saw them downplaying it.
Yeah.
They downplayed it heavily yesterday, I thought.